Hi, I am John Balwierczak, and I'm running for North Arlington Borough Council. I was born in Christ Hospital in Jersey City. I moved to North Arlington when I was 4 years old. I've been in this town since 1994, which is 30 years, equivalent to 3 decades. I'm a lifelong resident. I graduated from North Arlington High School in 2007. So when people ask me, does this town mean a lot to me? It means more than people can think, North Arlington. I started off in preschool in North Arlington, which was known as Wilson Middle School, which is now Susan B. Anthony. My preschool teacher was a longtime teacher, Mrs. McCrae. She still lives in town. I went to Jefferson School from 1st to 5th grade. I remember one of my 5th grade teachers being Mrs. Keogh, who still lives in town as well. I played basketball all the way up from 9th grade to senior year, earning Defensive Player of the Year award my senior year. I had lifelong name coaches in NA, including Mr. Mazzola, Coach Dave Walsh, and Coach Ferguson. I'm sure a lot of people remember Coach Ferguson referring to his giant van that he used to have that's a stalwart in NA. So when it comes to North Arlington, myself and John have a lot of roots in this town that really matters moving forward in the town. I remember one time when we would play high school basketball, we would have Perrier ball on Saturdays. And anyone who's been in high school at time remembers those. We would come in on a Saturday morning. I would talk so much, talk because I wanted to win. So the coaches would join on the other team to try to beat us, but we would win. So it would just cause, a big fun. We got shirts made. One thing that I remember about sports is we made it fun, whether we were winning and losing. And that was something I think is very important that people forget about, the fun side to the sport as well. My mother was born in Jersey City in the Orleans section and the Marion section in both. My mother worked in World Trade Center actually, prior to the towers coming down. And then she met my father. And then, my father had me and my sister. And, my mother became a full-time domestic engineer. And I think that's one of the toughest jobs is to be a full-time mother. You got to do a lot of the work with the kids, the sports, the cooking, etc., etc. Mind you, that is a time where we're in a different generation now where you don't see that as much as often as you used to. But that's what my mother was, and I was very grateful for how my mother raised me to where I am today. My mother is all Italian. Her maiden name is Gioia, Gioia. They come from Naples as well in Italy. My grandfather was all Italian. His name was Anthony Gioia. He worked for New Jersey Transit, which is blue-collar worker, blue-collar job. My father is 50% Italian, 50% Polish. His mother was all Italian. Her maiden name was Di Stefano. And my father's last name obviously is Balwierczak, but Balwierczak is how you say it in Polish. He was a blue-collar worker as well, my father. He was a big boss on the Port Authority Path Train Railroad. He was an operations engineer, but he worked his way up through the ranks. He was an engineer, conductor, train master, motorman. He was able to do every job on the railroad, which people came to him for advice because he would break people in as engineers, even though he was an operations examiner. My dad was basically a jack of all trades on the railroad. Port Authority, in the early 2000s, he took over Harrison Yard, and Harrison, which is the big yard where all the trains are, that was his yard. He had his own office, he ran the yard. At one point, my dad was in charge of 4,000 people on the railroad, which was engineers, conductors, switchmen, you name it. He was in control, but he was a fair man. He did what was right for the company, he did what was right for the people. He was not in the business to screwing anyone over. That what 9/11 was a very scary day for me and my family. I remember being in seventh grade. My mother gets a call from my father. He tells us to bring us out of school. And like I said, we didn't know because my father worked for PATH and he was in work at 9/11 and he's seen a lot of things. My dad got deputized on 9/11 as a Port Authority police officer. He even earned a badge. He did a lot of work at 9/11 because, like I said, when those buildings came down, it was just absolute chaos, where he was able to draw up things and draw up sheets of where people can and cannot go so that we don't risk preventing more lives of dying. Because at that time, nobody really knew what was going on. We didn't even have the right technology at that time compared to now. So like when you're in a tunnel and it was very hot there and water, it's very, very nerve-wracking. Listen, 9/11, one thing that always sticks in my head about my father is, just a lot of the bodies that he's seen, and it was just very sad. People think about, the towers. There was more than just the towers coming down. People within the rivers, other places within the PATH train and Port Authority suffered a lot. He's seen a lot of friends who died from the cancers after time from 9/11. That was very sad. And my father used to tell me ever since 9/11, you never know what can happen, so just enjoy life. Well, after my father retired, my father was always an overweight guy, but after he retired, the railroad, I guess just put a beating on him. He wound up developing, diabetes, lung problems because he smoked, and then he got agoraphobia. Those people who don't know what agoraphobia is, it means you're scared to leave the house, you get bad anxiety. My dad suffered from, that mental health problem. People say it was from 9/11, what he's seen, but he never would talk about it. But when my father got sick, the mental health part of it took a toll. And that's something that means a lot to me is mental health issues, because that is something that's not talked about enough with people when it comes to depression, anxiety, any type of suicidal thoughts, and etc. And the thing that sucks about my father was he got so depressed that he thought he had nothing to live for when we thought he had a whole life ahead of him, and he passed away at 63. I helped my father dearly when he was sick. My father was sick for at least, let's just say 5 to 7 years. I don't post about it, I don't talk about it, but I secretly, I took care of my father, dressing him, changing him. I would hate to say, wiping parts of his body after we had to go to the bathroom, but in the end, that's what a good son does. That's what somebody does when they take care of their family. Compassion is something that's forgotten about in this world, and I think that matters, and that's a good trait somebody should have that they're running for public office, is compassion. My father, listen, if my father was here right now, he'd be so proud. One thing my father always told me was just take care of my mother if he ever passed. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. My mother lost her husband of 35 years of marriage. She is heartbroken. I'm trying to be there as much as I can for my mother. My father, actually, I was the last person to hear from my father. He called me the night before he died in the hospital, and he would always joke with me, my father. John, I'm not going to make it out of here. I'm going to end up on a slab. Make sure you win the election. I go, Dad, I'll see you in the morning. I never seen him in the morning. He suffered from cardiac arrest and passed away. To the town of North Arlington, I hope in November you cast your vote for John Balwierczak and John Pagula for North Arlington Borough Council. Thank you very much.